Hey, it's been a while. Since last time I made a video, I've been in Michigan, doing a lot of sightseeing there, seeing relatives, seeing friends. It's been a lot of fun. Check on Facebook to see pictures of all that. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. I left Michigan this Friday early in the morning, and then I got here. I'm right now in St. Robert, Missouri, at about 10 p.m. When I left in the morning, it was about 15 degrees outside. I had about 5 layers on, huddled up for warmth in my car. And then when I got here, it was about 45 degrees out. And then the next day it was 65 degrees. Today it's been like 60. It's been super nice here. I got pretty lucky this trip because I planned to be in Michigan in February, but I ended up not getting a whole lot of snow. It wasn't too cold, so it was pretty good. For the most part, this traveling has been really smooth, which has been super nice. But last night I had a few hiccups and I had quite the adventure in St. Louis, but that was fun too. So let me share that story with you guys. Also, here's Obi. Hi, Obi. You might hear him moving around in the background. So yesterday, the plan was I wanted to see a Tang Soo Do studio in St. Louis, Missouri. There was one studio, more of a club than a studio, and they had a phone number on the website. So I called up the phone number last week, but I didn't get anybody. I left a message, and then I never heard back from them. So over the weekend, I did some investigating. The website didn't have any class times on it, didn't have a class schedule. It did, however, mention that the karate club takes place in a private school, and it had the name of the private school. So I Googled up the private school, and I looked up, through some investigating, I found their calendar, and found that they have karate on the schedule Monday nights from 7 to 8. So I'm pretty sure that's the karate class I'm looking for. So I've got a day, I've got a time. Great. So it just so happens the family I'm staying with is doing a field trip to a museum in St. Louis yesterday, Monday, the same day I need to be in St. Louis for the karate class. And for the record, St. Louis is about 2 hours from where I am right now, so it's kind of an all-day thing if I'm going to go there. So the plan is I'm going to drive separately from them to St. Louis. We're going to hang out at the museum together. It's this family I'm staying with, plus their homeschool co-op was organizing a field trip there, so a lot of homeschool kids there as well. And then they would carpool with their friends and come back here to St. Robert. Meanwhile, I would spend the day in St. Louis, and then in the evening I would do the karate class. Again, I haven't got in contact with the karate club yet, so I'm planning on trying to call them again on Monday. But if I can't get a hold of them, just kind of showing up and seeing if I can watch, take, or teach their class. One of the big advantages of World Tang Soo Do. So here's where the adventure starts. I leave in the morning yesterday, about 10 a.m., a little bit earlier, to get to St. Louis around noon for the museum field trip. Partway through the drive, I realized my car charger for my phone is not working, and unfortunately the external battery that I usually bring with me for such occasions I used on Friday, and I didn't recharge, so I don't have that, and I don't have a way to charge my phone in the car. So by the time I get to St. Louis using my phone for my podcast and for navigating, my phone is at 30% charge for the whole day in St. Louis. So of course at the museum, I also want to take pictures with my phone. So I take some pictures, and by the time we get done hanging out at the museum, it's 2 or 3 p.m. maybe, and my phone is even lower on battery. At this point, it's maybe 20%. And at this point, I still have no idea what I'm going to do in St. Louis between the museum and the karate class. I was planning to look that up on my phone, but now I'm running out of batteries, and I still need directions, and I still need to get home, so I need a plan. So I Google the nearest library on my phone, I drive over to the library, and then I power down my phone to conserve the 10% battery I have left. That way I can make emergency calls if I need to. And then using the computer at the library, I look up some stuff to do in St. Louis, and I look up some places to eat, and I look up directions. I decide I'm going to spend some time at Forest Park, which is probably the most generic name for a park I've ever heard, but it's actually a really cool park. I get on my unicycle, and I unicycle around the park. I turn my phone on one time to take some pictures of the glass building of glass. And then after hanging out at the park, I would go get food at this place. I found a Korean taco place, which I've never heard of before, but I like Korean food and I like tacos, so I thought I would try it. And then I would go to the karate studio. So while I was at the library, I made my very own map of St. Louis, and I was going to use this to navigate for the day. So I used this to get from the library to Forest Park, and then to the restaurant, and then to the Tang Soo Do studio, and then back on the highway, which I knew would take me back here where I'm staying. I gotta say, it's really convenient having maps on your phone to help you navigate, but on the other hand, it was actually pretty fun and rewarding to make my own map and navigate around St. Louis using that. So after I get food at the Korean taco place, then I head to the school where the Tang Soo Do class is. I get there about 30 minutes early, and I'm already seeing people with karate uniforms, so I'm like, yes, I'm in the right place. So I get out, I walk in, I meet the instructor there. Apparently the message I left last week got deleted somehow by mistake, and he didn't have my phone number, so he couldn't call me back, but he was really excited about having me there. It turns out I was the highest ranked there. The instructor there was a 2nd degree black belt, I'm a 3rd degree black belt, and then they had a black belt from another style there as well. They had a single Chodombo blue belt there, and then the rest of their students were all brown belt and below. So I got to watch a little bit of their class, and then I got to teach some of their class, which was a ton of fun. I met a lot of really cool people. I shared some karate. I learned a couple things differently, the way they do things. Me and the instructor there were both surprised how similar our Tang Soo Do was. Like, obviously we're both part of World Tang Soo Do Association. However, most studios have minor variations in their forms. I found that this club and our studio back in Hockessin, Delaware were very, very similar on a lot of things, even more so than my studio in Delaware compared to studios an hour away in Pennsylvania. So really interesting how that works out. So heading home from the karate studio, the exit from one highway to another was actually closed. So long story short, I ended up stopping for directions once. I know, crazy, stopping and asking for directions, but I did. I stopped and I asked for directions. They weren't actually very good with directions, so I mostly figured it out on my own. But anyway, I made it back to the highway I was trying to get on, and I made it home. So that was my adventure in St. Louis. I'll talk to you guys soon.